Hey there, welcome to episode 59 of Social Business Engine, the podcast that showcases industry thought leaders who represent modern business in action through the culture and technology of social. I'm your host, Bernie Borges of Find and Convert. Hey, thanks for listening. On this episode, you're going to meet Amy Heiss. Amy has one of the best jobs on the planet if you're a social business professional, that is. Amy is the Global Program Manager for Social Media Training and Activation at Dell. And Dell has a long history of being social. Among Amy's many responsibilities is providing continuing education for the entire Dell team on the latest trends in social and how to show business value in social. And that's what we're going to be discussing on today's episode. This episode is sponsored by Cision. We've partnered with Cision to publish Social Business Journal Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer relations. Visit socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, spelled C-I-S-I-O-N, and download this journal and up your influencer marketing game in 2015. And now let's get to my conversation with Amy Heiss. Amy, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hi, Bernie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Outstanding. Well, Amy, let's begin. I think most people probably know who Dell is, but let's begin with your job and your role at Dell, because as I said in the intro, you've got a really cool job, but it's a big job. Why don't you begin with a brief explanation of that?
Okay, I definitely loved your description of my job. I always describe it as the best job on the planet. And that's because I get to really help our Dell team members connect more closely with our customers every day through social. Dell has a rich history of direct relationships with customers. That's our model. That's how we were founded.
Right.
And so social media is just an evolution of that. And I spend my time with employees and executives and customers talking about how Dell and our team members can get closer to our customers through social media.
Okay. First, can you give me an update? Do you know what the current employee headcount is at Dell, approximately?
We have about 110,000 team members across the globe.
Just a few. Okay.
Just a few.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about that history, because as you pointed out, Amy, the company Dell was founded on, and correct me if I'm wrong, is still a direct to the customer selling model, correct?
We are. We also do have a channel business that we started a number of years ago, which is a great new kind of facet of the business, but we're still in direct relationships. We still feel very close to our customers no matter how they purchase their system.
Right. And the customer can still absolutely go to the website and order directly. I mean, I know I've done that in years past.
Oh, yes, you absolutely can.
Okay, terrific. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Dell's social experience, because there is some history there, right?
Yes, we had an interesting start in social. First off, Michael Dell is a huge social media user, advocate. He tends to find things, in social that alert him to a problem around the same time as our tools do. He's very good. I don't know how he finds the time. So Michael has always been somebody who was in social. And what happened really in around the 2006 timeframe was we had what I like to call the perfect storm of activity. We had Jeff Jarvis, who's a big influencer, pretty upset about an experience that he had with Dell customer service, and he wrote about it, and he's been very, very public about that. And then we also had a recording of a battery fire, which was an industry problem, a battery problem, and not a Dell problem, but the recording happened to be, on a Dell computer, and it went viral pretty quickly in the summer of 2000.
I remember it.
Yeah. And then next is that Michael Dell actually returned to lead Dell again. He had stepped away from the CEO position and was on the board, but he came back as our CEO also that year. And one thing that he said right away when he came back was that, a lot of people had shifted from posting their challenges or their questions or, even their feedback from Dell.com, where we've created this e-commerce but also e-support site, onto third-party blogs and websites. And that as a direct business, we shouldn't let that stop us from directly answering our customers' questions. So while we had been listening all along to what people were saying about us on third-party sites, we didn't respond because at that time in 2006, we didn't know, should a big brand go to an individual's blog and comment in the section to answer questions? And, as our leader, Michael, said, the answer to that's yes, go do it. I want you to do it. And so we started to, we started our social foray in terms of tech support, answer their questions, solve their problems, provide help, build trust. Do that first before you do anything else. And so our Dell Cares team, that's what they're known as on Twitter, at Dell Cares, they were started in 2006.
Okay.
And they were just, Bernie, 5 guys speaking English, using Google to find out where people were posting about Dell. And they've evolved since then to 80 individuals across the globe using, listening tools that will find any issue immediately as it's posted and will alert them so that they can solve problems right away. It's just been such an evolution. But certainly we felt like before we could communicate through social, before we could market, before we could sell, before we could deepen relationships, we had to first start with solving customers' problems and being helpful.
Right. So, Amy, one of the things that I said in your introduction that we actually talked about before we started recording was that your focus is helping Dell employees drive business value through social. And you just explained how Dell Cares went from 5 guys in a startup mode to 80 plus around the world. So there must be some business value there if you've got that kind of a headcount commitment to it. You want to speak to that?
Definitely. So first of all, we consider these guys and gals across the globe the heroes for us in social. Because especially for my team, who's responsible for driving activation in social for our team members, no one would want to do that if my area of expertise is employee engagement and social media, and every time I posted, somebody asked how to fix my hard drive. I don't know the answer to that, but this Dell Cares team does, and we can tag them in any kind of post like that. So we're able to do everything else we do in social because of this team. And you're right about the business value that we found there. It started purely as putting customers first and getting out there and answering questions and being helpful, providing break fix and how-to information. But what we found as a result of that is that people really began to trust our social media team because they never tried to sell them anything. And the rules weren't any different, and they were very transparent about the interaction. When you pose a problem that you're having with Dell on Twitter, we're going to solve that problem on Twitter too. We're not going to ask you to call us or take it offline. We want you and everybody else to see. And so what happened there is that they became trusted advisors. And now if you look at the @Dell Cares account, they have a huge number of followers, and all they're doing is providing break fix and how-to information, tech support, customer care. But what we see as a result is fewer calls to our call center. So obviously that's a big cost savings.
Call deflection, I think is the terminology there, right?
Yes, that's right. We can see that, and we can measure it in a number of ways. When our Dell Cares team puts out proactive information, when they provide a video on how to do something, when they look at trends in social and see what questions are coming up most, and they sit down and do a 2-minute video that's not highly produced. It's just really simple and giving them answers. We see thousands of phone calls deflected from that. And a blog post in the first day can deflect thousands. So we know that content is evergreen. So we know that it deflects future calls as well when people are doing search for the answer to that question and they see the Dell content come up. So that has been very, very useful for us too, but it was accidental.
Okay. So what about the rest of the 100 plus employees? You've got a team of, you said, about 80 people that are in the Dell Care team. but what about all the other employees? What role do they play? How do you train them? How do you decide who gets training and who doesn't, et cetera?
Everybody can get training. We call our program Social Media and Community University, or SMaCU, and we like to say anyone at Dell can get smacked. So we open it up to all of them. It's a fun bit of acronyms, and I do have to give some credit to Liz Bullock and Amy Tennyson, who helped create some of these fun acronyms at Dell. For sure.
Terrific.
So anyone can get certified, and the training is set up very much. Excuse me. The training is set up very much like a university. So you have your basic courses that you have to take, and then you have your elective courses that you can choose to take. So our basic classes are really around Dell's social media policy and strategy. The strategy for us at Dell is to embed into the culture social media, to use it as a tool like the phone or email is a tool. We would never think about not picking up the phone when a customer calls, and we want our team members to think about social media in the same way.
I love that. I've used that analogy so many times, Amy. You probably never heard me use that analogy before. Like, when phones got introduced to business, how many decades ago? I wonder if executives sat around a boardroom saying, "Oh, we can't put a phone on an employee's desk. We can't allow them to talk to customers. We can't control that." It's the same thing.
Or they might call home. They might not be working. They might see what's going on at home. They might goof off. They might tell competitors what's going on here.
Right.
We use the same analogy in our training. We talk about when the phone was put in, and then we talk about even when email was put in.
Exactly.
Because the same thing happened with email. People pushed back, and they'd give away competitor information, or we'd share the secrets, or they'd email their wife or husband and not work. And the same is true in social. So we share that story actually just like that. We talk about, we have a slide with a picture of a phone and a picture of email, and then now social. We just see it as the next evolution in business. We don't see it as something different.
Right.
And so we really wanted to make our policy simple. It's 5 things. It's protect customer privacy, be transparent, be responsible, follow the law, follow the code. So know the FTC guidelines, but also know the rules and regulations of Flickr or Facebook.
Okay.
We don't train them in every class because, as you know, Facebook changes its policies every 24 hours or so. So we don't train the current policy, but we expect our employees to know it. And then the 5th one is be nice, have fun, and be yourself. And what we mean by that is we really want social media to be a humanizer for our brand. We want people to meet our employees, know who they are, and we also don't believe that your identity as a Dell employee stops at 5 p.m. So we want you to be nice regardless of what time it is, regardless of the topic, regardless of what site you're on. And so we ask our employees to, kind of have fun and be respectful and social and not use it as a tool for arguments. I've never met a person that's won an internet argument. I don't know about you.
No,
so we
I
talk
haven't
about
either.
that in call.
Okay, cool. Well, Amy,
so that's really our first course.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about culture, the social culture at Dell. But first, I'm going to pause briefly for a message from our sponsor, Cision. Cision is widely recognized as a leader in public relations software, and we are really excited to partner with Cision on Volume 2 of the Social Business Journal. In this how-to guide in influencer marketing, you'll discover a 3-step process from Cision on how to develop an influencer relations program. And you hear from 21 business experts on everything from what an ideal influencer looks like to the secret sauce of penetrating the sphere of an influencer. These business experts deliver bite-sized insights to give you actionable takeaways for your influencer relations strategy. To get your copy of Social Business Journal, Volume 2, just go to socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, spelled CISION. So, Amy, the social culture, as you said, the history of social at Dell dates back a few years, perhaps more than many other companies. But in terms of where it is today, I think one place I'd like to start, because we could probably devote an entire podcast episode just to social culture, especially at a mature company like Dell. But do you look at like a prospective employee's social footprint and social behavior and social IQ and things like that? And I'm totally making up those, that vernacular. But do you look at those kinds of attributes before you actually hire someone?
For social media roles, certainly we do. I think our talent acquisition team would be better to answer whether they do it for all roles, but we tell our employees that that's something they need to consider very closely, not just if they're looking for jobs outside of Dell, but even if they're looking at jobs inside of Dell to move positions, to change departments, which is one of the greatest things about working for Dell. It's such a large company that you can kind of move in and out between departments and have a varied career, but with the same company. And we know that our HR teams, kind of look at social and value social a great deal when they do hiring. So it's something for sure. But I think what we find in our training and what we found through activating, we have more than 15,000 certified team members at Dell who've taken our training, completed it, who've used social. And what we know is we can count on one hand the number of incidences where an employee has made a mistake through social. And we try and have grace as much as possible and use it as a case study and as an example whenever we can. But we certainly believe that your social footprint and what you put out there says something about you, and it says something about Dell. So we want to make sure that our employees are, like I said in rule number 5, being nice.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. You just heard our message from our sponsor, Cision, and we're promoting this ebook on influencer marketing. And I'm just curious, Amy, what role does that play among your employees? Do some of your employees become influencers by their very behavior and their subject matter expertise and that sort of thing?
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, back to social business, we measure that.
Okay.
My team has created a scorecard where we measure our employees' influence. We look at their footprint, we look at their clout scores and their engagement scores. So when they post content, how much is it engaged with? We look at their earned media value. So how much revenue, or are they kind of saving us by their posts? And then we look at things like their activity on posting and how that influences registration for events. So we know for Dell World, for example, when our team members, especially our sales team members, post information about our biggest event of the year, Dell World, we see a direct relation between those posts and registrations going up. We can look at if they post on a Monday, do registrations go up Monday? And if they post on Wednesday, and we do all kinds of A/B testing, and we see that in every time when they post about content in social, it drives registration to our events.
That makes great sense.
So we certainly see business value in that.
Now, Amy, do certain employees, do the influencers, the employee influencers, do they get any kind of recognition, and does it create any kind of, I don't know if envy is the right word, but perhaps ambition among other employees to say, I want to be one of those influencers too?
That's our hope. Yes. Yes, we recognize employees. My team spends a lot of time on this. We want our employees who are doing well in social to get recognition. And so we do a couple of things. First, if you come to any of our trainings, we send a letter to your manager after the training, an email saying, Bernie was just in our training on, last week we did one on dealing with trolls, or recently we did one on dealing with trolls. And so Bernie was in our training on dealing with trolls. The information covered in the training was this. And so here are 3 questions you could ask Bernie in your next meeting with him to further the conversation or to keep it going. So now our team members who are attending our training are getting that time with their manager to talk about the value of the training. And it's not just a one and done kind of moment for training. They don't leave training and then never think of it again, because we know that it'll come up in a meeting with their leaders if they're using that email. And then thirdly, we have an internal website for team members where we constantly promote our employees who are sharing the most content or getting the most engagement from their content. So we provide recognition quite a bit for those employees. And even just being a SMaC certified team member gets you invited to events that being a regular Dell employee you couldn't get into. And so what we find is that people want to take our social media training so that they can be included in those events, so that they can be recognized. And some leaders have even taken it further. We have Brian Jones, who's the vice president of Dell's North America Marketing Division, and he's required all of his team members to not only take the social media training, but to actually use social as part of their job. They have to use social, and it's part of their review. It's part of any consideration for promotion. So he's really seeing the value of encouragement. And then he starts every staff meeting by asking his leaders what their cloud scores are. So he really cares about.
He starts the meeting with
Yes,
cloud score updates. Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and I've attended some of those meetings, and there's some healthy competition.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun to hear them brag about their scores and share best practices for what they're doing. So it's great fun.
Wow. That's really, really surprising, especially since there's so much talk, in the social media world about, is something like Cloud Score, truly relevant or not, and that kind of thing. But
well, that's true. And I know what you're talking about there, but one thing we see it as is definitely a score of engagement.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so they look at it as who's engaging. It's not just about are you putting out content, but are you putting out content that people are really using?
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What about the age old, as if social's been around for that long, right? But the common concern among most enterprise executives that the more influencers we create among the employee ranks, then the faster we're just, accelerating them getting recruited by someone else. How do you deal with that at Dell?
I've heard that before. So I'm glad you asked. We believe that if an employee is going to leave, they're going to leave whether or not, it's because of social. It might definitely speed things up, but we think that if you create a culture where people want to stay at your company, that they're happy in their jobs, that they like their leadership, they enjoy their role, there's a good work-life balance, then activating them in social isn't going to make them leave. They're attracted to more than just what's keeping them here now. But we do recognize that there's potential for our employees to leave, and especially those subject matter experts and influencers that we're working on, which is why this summer my team is working on a project where we can potentially get additional bonuses based on our influencers' ability to create some business value in social.
Okay.
So we're hoping that this program sort of counterbalances that, and more to report on that. I'll come back at another time and tell you whether it worked, but that's what we're spending our summer on.
Okay. So putting a little financial incentive behind being social and driving social value to the business.
Yes, and we have social influencers that are doing a great job of it now. We measure it. We have scorecards. They see it. They take that to their leaders. And what we want to do further this summer is say to our HR teams, instead of the annual bonus or the semi-annual bonus, what if we had quarterly awards for the social influencers that are driving the most business? We know we can measure their business attributions, and so can we also bonus them on that pretty regularly?
And this is going to be available to all employees?
Yes, all Dell employees, but I'll say that you'll have to hit certain thresholds for
you have to qualify. You have to qualify.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's the whole university concept too. So it makes total sense that there's certain criteria that you have to meet and eligibility. So So yeah, that's fantastic, and I would love to have you come back, sometime in the future and report on that, Amy. That would be terrific.
I'd love to.
All right, great. Well, Amy, let's segue to my one thing question. And you know that this is where I ask you if there's any one thing that you could change about the way that business is conducted today. What would that be?
Well, I crowdsourced my answer with the social media team from Dell, and the answer came back from
Is
the
that
group
fair?
Unfair, did you say?
No, I said, is that fair?
Oh, is that fair? Yeah, I felt like if we're a social team, we should socially get the answer. And
Okay.
everybody agreed that less email is the one thing we would change.
Oh, I'm with you on that.
Yes.
Can we sign up for that like today?
Yes, we all agree that if we could have more collaboration with social media and less email, we would all be much happier.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I'm with you on that. Email is my nemesis. I just feel like it's a river that never stops flowing. And
I
I can
agree.
only imagine in an organization the size of Dell that you must feel that way as well.
Let me tell you, while we've been talking, I've received 64 emails.
Hmm.
Hmm.
See, I don't even have my inbox tab open because I don't want to look at it. I want to be focused 100% on this conversation and not allow those emails coming in to potentially distract me. So,
Totally agree.
yeah,
Yes, we have to get rid of email. We have to figure out a way.
yep, yep. Well, I thought that's what Twitter was for.
I know. How come that's not the case? I feel
Yeah,
like it didn't help any.
no. Maybe in a few years, Twitter will reinvent itself and it'll be more than 140 characters. Maybe it'll go up to 200 characters and it'll replace email. I don't know. I don't know. But I love that, Amy. That's that's a chapter right out of my own book, and I have a feeling that you and I are not the only ones, especially since you shared that you crowdsourced it. That is definitely a common sentiment. Well, Amy, before we segue to my closing here, please let people know how they can connect with you online and just anything that's going on at Dell that's exciting that you'd like to share.
Great. I would love to connect. I'm on LinkedIn, Amy Heiss, and I actually have a LinkedIn publisher post on how we train our executives in social media there. So would love to hear what people think and how they train their executives. And I'm also on Twitter. I'm Amy H. at Dell, and would love to hear from people through Twitter as well.
Terrific. Well, Amy, my listeners know that I will have all of those links, including I'm going to dig up that article that you published on LinkedIn, and we'll include a link to that in the show notes page. And everybody that's listened to my podcast before, they know where to get that, socialbusinessengine.com/podcast. So, Amy, thank you so much for joining me here today and sharing the history of Dell's social business strategy and where you are today and where you're headed. It's really exciting, and I really appreciate you sharing those insights today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Terrific. Well, Amy, I also want to remind everybody that in addition to all the links that are on the podcast page, that they can also get a copy of the Social Business Journal Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer marketing that we produce in cooperation with Cision. And that is not only available on the website, but it's directly available at socialbusinessengine.com/Cision. And also on our website, we have a video channel where you can catch interviews with other inspiring business professionals that are succeeding in modern business through social. And then the last thing that I always like to ask is if you enjoy this podcast in any way, I would really be grateful if you would write a review in iTunes. And to make that easy, we have a page that's set up at socialbusinessengine.com/iTunes, and that links directly to this podcast. Hey, until next time, this is Bernie Borges of Find and Convert, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.